Things I do for my viewers. Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome back to Super Kaiju Binge. As I guessed it, I came down with a cold, so that's why there was no second video last week. Um, but I'm coming back this week with a bang. There will be a video tomorrow, so don't fret. But man, do I have a doozy today. Today on Super Kaiju Binge, I will be tackling two of the absolute, I need a haircut, worst Gamera movies of the entire Gamera franchise. There ain't no sugarcoating or beating around the bush with this one. God damn, I do not like these movies. Today, I will be reviewing 1968's Gamera vs. Viras, or Virus, and 1969's Gamera vs. Guiron. Not Guiron, James, Guiron. Why am I doing this as a double feature? For a number of reasons. One, the plots to both films are very simple and straightforward and can literally be summed up in just a couple of sentences. Two, none of these movies are very long. Actually, both movies are about an hour and 20 minutes apiece, so they don't really give very much to singular reviews, especially the way that I do them. Three, some people say that they're beat for beat the exact same movies, which I don't entirely agree with, but they do follow very similar tropes and are very similar tone and somewhat plot wise. So I feel like they lend themselves good to a double feature there. And they're also both, well, Guiron is not an alien invasion film, but they both deal with aliens. They both feel like episodes of a TV show or TV specials, and both suck ass. So I just don't want to dedicate single oh my god, why? I guess Gamera vs. Virus is Noriaki Yuasa's favorite Gamera film. Why? Because you didn't have to do very much for the fucking film? More on that later. And later in the franchise. But yeah, both suck ass, and I don't want to dedicate single videos to both movies, so screw it. Not to mention, it's my channel. I'll do whatever the hell I want. And just in general, the biggest one of all is, while I have kind of a lot to say about them in terms of pros and cons for both films, just in general, I don't have much to say about either movie except saying they're bad. After the financial success of Gamera versus Gauss, Dai realized that their method of cheap and quick for the Gamera movies would prove to be successful. So, right after Gamera versus Gauss was released, and in the beginning of the kaiju decline in the late 60s going into the early 70s, as well as a timely pairing with Henry G. Saperstein's AIP Productions, Gamera versus Virus was made on a budget of $10 and maybe a roll of duct tape, and was shit out in 1968. And then after that movie proved to be a success, despite the fact that apparently Gamera vs. Virus was intended at one point to be the final Gamera movie, Dai saw the success of Virus and just said, take that formula and do it again. And so in 1969, Gamera vs. Guiron was also shit out onto screens and on home video in the late 80s. And yep, the Gamera franchise was certainly cemented into its formula with these two movies. And my God, does it not for the better. I'm not even going to sugarcoat my opinions with these movies. I'm not a fan. Well, Gamera versus Virus is legitimately a bad movie, a bad monster movie, a bad Gamera movie, and just overall is a bad film. Never been a fan of it, never was a fan of it. I've seen the film only 4 times in my entire life. And every single time, I dislike the movie more and more. I've seen Gamera versus Guiron, on the other hand, about 7 times. And the first few times that I saw the movie, oh, goody, Horror and Metal is here. Yo. Yeah, I've seen Gamera versus Guiron about 7 times. And the first couple, I actually did enjoy the film. But as I got older and as I watched the movie, I just kept feeling this isn't working. This really is not working for me. I don't like this tone. I don't really like this kind of story. Um, I don't like this direction. I just don't like this movie. Um, and now I've gotten to the point I consider Gamera versus Virus, well, Virus in particular, I consider to be one of the absolute worst monster movies ever made. Gamera versus Virus is just awful. It's a bad, terrible, poorly made, boring ass piece of shit. And Gamera versus Guiron, I don't quite consider to be one of the worst monster movies ever made, but I don't consider it a good movie in the slightest, and I do think it is one of the weakest Gamera movies of the entire franchise. It's just not a they had the heart, but they didn't have the mind to make it a good film. Um, so yeah, that's really all I have to say in terms of personal history for Virus and Guiron. I've seen these movies only a couple of times, and I saw both of them in full when I got the Gamera Legacy Collection, and I just don't like them. Sorry. I know that Gamera versus Guiron in particular has a cult following surrounding it, which I can see why. Because Gamera versus Guiron, I guess for some reason appeals to a lot of Doctor Who fans. Um, which in that case it is kind of rare for like Gamera versus Guiron story is kind of rare where humans and monsters go to an alien world and fight other giant monsters. I can't really think of any other movies that do that off the top of my head. Um, but still, I'm just not a fan of these movies at all. So I'll elaborate more with my pros and cons for each film. So starting off, of course, with Gamera versus Virus, and I'll just call it Virus, released in the States as Destroy All Planets. Why? A spaceship which looks like a series of anal beads, not even going to lie about that one, approaches Earth. Gamera intervenes and easily destroys it, but before it is destroyed, the aliens broadcast a warning to their world stating that Gamera is their number one enemy. Later on Earth, a Boy Scout troop is visiting an aquarium to see the scientists working on a small 2-man submarine. It's always either a submarine or um, some other bullshit in these movies. Masao and Jim, two of the Boy Scouts, them being the pranksters of the group, managed to talk their way on board this sub. And while in the water, messing around with a scientific experiment, they spot Gamera, who engages in a little race with the boys for some reason. However, their hijinks come to an end when the second alien vessel envelops the both of them in a super catch ray, which just looks like a plastic orange bubble. Gamera helps the boys to escape by lifting the plastic wrap, but he remains trapped in the force field while the aliens scan his memories via showing us 15 fucking minutes of stock footage. Good Lord. In doing this, they learn of Gamera's one weakness being his soft spot for children. Soon after, the field weakens and Gamera is free. The aliens capture Jim and Masao, threatening to kill the boys in order for him to do their bidding. Powerless to help them, Gamera lands, and then, completely illogically, attaching a mind control device to Gamera's head, the aliens force the turtle kaiju to do their bidding. What the hell is the point of kidnapping the kids? I know that's been said before, but seriously, what the fuck was the point? Why do we need to sit through 15 minutes of stock footage just for the aliens to be like, mind control? Idiots. While aboard the spaceship, the boys continually try to escape. Gamera, however, under the influence of the aliens and the influence of the filmmaker's laziness, via stock footage, is destroying dams and cities by the handful. Jim and Masao discover a squid-like creature, thinking that he is another captive of the aliens, when in fact he is actually the leader of these aliens. The boys help Gamera break free from the mind control device, stupidly using the logic of just reversing the controls or reversing the polarity. Maybe that's where the Doctor Who thing starts. And they succeed in escaping from the spaceship. Next, Gamera attacks this spaceship, and grounded by Gamera, the aliens reveal that their human forms were just disguises. The aliens all merge to form the giant monster Viras via Go-Go Power Rangers. Gamera and Viras duke it out in a big beachside battle that looks cheap as fuck. Gamera manages to pull Viras into the upper atmosphere, allowing himself to be shell-fucked, freezing him to death, and then flinging Virus's body back into the ocean, which causes him to disintegrate. The boys and a crowd of adults celebrate Gamera's victory, leaving the ending to this movie feeling just like a goddamn TV special. Oh, Megan's here. Hi. Moving on to Gamera versus Guiron. Released still at... fuck. Sorry, guys, I'm tired. Parenthood. Which was released in America as Attack of the Monsters. What is up with these goddamn alternate titles? For some reason, this one's plot is pretty detailed, even though it's very similar to its predecessor, but whatever. Well, not really, but while scanning the skies through their telescope, two young boys, Akio and Tom, thankfully these two are far less annoying, spy a flying saucer descending into a nearby field. Fuck. Stunned, bewildered, and bemused, they tell Akio's mother what they have seen, but she dismisses their story as childish nonsense. The next day, the two boys, with Akio's younger sister Tomoko in tow, cycle to the site to investigate, passing a pedophilic police officer. Enthralled, Akio and Tom manage to steal into the spaceship, but then without warning, the ship takes off, thankfully leaving Tomoko behind. It soars into outer space toward a field of asteroids, which sends the boys into a panic. However, Gamera, obviously aware of the boys' plight, appears and clears a path for the ship through the asteroids. The spaceship, flying somehow near the speed of light, leaves Gamera behind and transports the boys to an unknown planet, where it lands on the outskirts of an alien city. Suddenly, a silver space gouse appears, menacing the ship and the two young boys. And just before the creature attacks, a second, far more bizarre monster, whose head resembles a big Bowie knife, you don't say, emerges from an underground lair and attacks Space Gauss. Space Gauss fires his beam that reflects off the new creature's blade-shaped head and cuts off its own right leg. After Space Gauss attempts to retreat, the knife-headed creature lunges and chops off Space Gauss's left wing before cutting off its right wing, and then cutting Space Gauss's head, and brutally cuts the monster's body into smaller pieces like pepperoni before retreating back into its lair after laughing like Pooh Bear. Akio and Tom explore a portion of the alien city and meet the planet's only inhabitants, two beautiful women named Barbella and Florbella, rolls right off your tongue, who explain that their planet, known as Terra, is Earth's sister planet, and orbits the sun directly opposite the Earth, which is why it has never been discovered by Earth's astronomers. Furthermore, Terra is facing extinction. Not only is the planet growing cold, but the space gauss are taking it over, and the two women are the last of their kind. The knife-headed monster, known as Guiron, is their last line of defense against Space Gauss. Barbella and Florbella suddenly incapacitate Tom and Akio. What the fuck? And put them into restraints. Using their super technological devices, the alien women probe the boys' minds via 3 minutes of stock footage, and in the process learn about Gamera and his soft spot for kids. It is then revealed that the Terran women are cannibals and intend to feed on the boys' brains in order to absorb their knowledge. For kids. In preparation to extract Akio's brain for their nourishment, the women shave the kid's head. And on a rescue mission, Gamera lands on Terra in search of the boys. The women deploy Guiron to attack the giant turtle. Guiron plans to cut Gamera in half, but Gamera grabs one of Guiron's front legs and bites into it. Guiron tries to shake off the towering tortoise. Wrapping his tail onto a monolith, Gamera throws Guiron into a canyon, causing his knife head to be stuck into the rocks below. Gamera uses his flame breath on Guiron, and Guiron then unleashes his telekinetic shurikens to penetrate Gamera's cheeks. Gamera tries to heal his wounds by grabbing ice-like boulders, and Guiron uses his shurikens, but Gamera then uses a long boulder to ricochet the shurikens into Guiron's own body. Guiron trudges away while Gamera tumbles into a lake unconscious and on his back. That happens a lot in this movie. Tom wakes up and frees Akio, but during their escape attempt, unintentionally releases Guiron. No longer under the aliens' control, Guiron rampages through the Terran city, even attacking his own mistresses as they attempt to flee the Earth. The knife-headed creature slices the spacecraft in half, mortally injuring Barbella, and Florbella kills Barbella as she relates that useless members of their society are euthanized. While Guiron attacks the base where the boys are imprisoned, Gamera awakes and renews his assault on the alien creature. Ultimately ramming Guiron's head into the ground, Florbella attempts to flee on a rocket, but the boys launch missiles that destroy her rocket and she dies as a result. Gamera catches one of the missiles and spears Guiron into his shuriken base. Gamera uses his flame breath on Guiron, again where the missile is, and the missile then explodes, cutting Guiron in half. For kids. Gamera uses his flame breath again to weld the alien spacecraft back together and carries the ship with the two boys back in it back to Earth. On Earth, the boys are returned to their mothers, and they all say goodbye to Gamera as he flies off into the sky. So, how about these movies' plots? For Gamera versus Virus, it is the most hackneyed, boring, basic, generic alien invasion plot that you could have possibly come up with. There was no effort or imaginative spin to make this feel more unique. This just feels like an alien invasion movie, just with Gamera in it. Maybe not necessarily bad, but it's bland and it's boring as fuck. Gamera versus Guiron is a lot more imaginative and a bit more original, even though this is clearly taken inspiration from Invasion of the Astro Monster. More on that later. It just does feel like the creators were trying to make this movie feel more unique, which it does, but for both good and bad reasons. At least to me, is Gamera versus Guiron unique. But aside from that, it's not bad per se. It's got a really interesting and kind of cool concept, but in my opinion, it's the execution that really leaves this movie lacking for me. That's why it really doesn't work for myself. It's just okay. I'm not a fan of either of these movie stories. Um, Gamma versus Virus is cheap and garbage, and Gamma versus Guiron is imaginative and good for kids, but the execution is very lacking, in my opinion. Let's move on to the pros and cons of Gamera versus Virus, shall we? Pro number one is I do like the first 10 minutes of this movie. Gamera's fight with the Oh, wait, hang on. Before we even continue, a word from our sponsor. Okay. Yeah, I do like the fun opening scene. It's a fairly entertaining, fairly well made, and kind of exciting space battle between Gamera and an alien spaceship. It's minimalist and kind of cheaply done, but it is still fun. Gamera does some pretty dynamic moves, and when he smashes his face into the alien spaceship and just blows it the fuck up with his fire breath, it's awesome. And there's a really nice transition into the title sequence. The alien goes, "We're being attacked. We're being attacked by a monster. Its name is Boom! Explosion! Gamera versus Space Monster Virus." It's a great action-packed opening, and it's just a shame that the movie from here on out is just instantly downhill. But the first 10 minutes are fun. Pro number two is the special effects overall. I list them as passable. They're extremely cheap and extremely hit and miss. The Sunimation is the barest minimum in this movie. It's only barely can you buy Gamera and Virus as giant monsters, and only barely do you buy the space effects and the spaceship effects as being legit. Oh Jesus, more on that later. But yeah, the effects are just passable. I don't mean to wear my influence of Zazubar with Godzilla and Gamera so heavily on my sleeves, but the guy just says a lot of stuff that I do agree with, so that's my defense. Um, I agree that this looks like a TV movie, or like it could have been an hour-long TV special converted into a theatrical film. which if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think that was. I think this was like trying to be a legit theatrical film, which is sad. I um yeah, I'm not super impressed by the effects. They're just passable. They look like they were made on a TV budget. So and again, I see that Noriaki Yuasa and his crew were just doing the best that they could with what they had, but still, the effects are just passable. As is pro number 3, which is the passable final monster battle. Well, only final monster battle in this movie, because not counting all the stock footage, there really is only one monster fight in this movie between Gamera and Virus at the end of the movie. It's nothing uber special. It's kind of entertaining. It's slightly well choreographed, and the effects are decent in that scene, except for all the underwater stuff with Gamma and Virus. That's just awful. And well, the effect is bad. Watching Gamera ride Virus like a jet ski is dumb and stupid and funny and silly. Yeah, the final monster battle, it's just passable. It's far from one of the best giant monster battles of the entire kaiju medium, but it's just okay. And really, that's all the pros that I have for this film. Oh my god, it's just terrible. So I'm gonna jump right into my cons. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cons for Gamera versus Virus. Here we go. Con number 1 is the terrible humor in this movie. This movie really feels like one of those made-for-TV Disney Channel or Nickelodeon movies that are based on a really popular show, and this feels so watered down and so bland and boring and basic. And usually in those movies, they try to be funny. It's really not, though. All the jokes are dumb and cringy and stupid and childish. The same case goes for this movie. All of the jokes and the humor, it's uber slapsticky and uber goofy and stupid and quote unquote funny, but it's really not. It's just dumb and stupid and only for kids, which, goddamn, I know that these, especially from this point on, Gamera movies were usually made for kids. Well, you know my stance on when movies are actively made to be for kids, it never really works. And a lot of these Gamera movies are perfect examples of why that doesn't work. But yes, I know that they're kids movies and they may work as kids movies, but just for me, I don't really see that as an excuse. I think that's just a cop out. Because even adults can enjoy kids movies. Kids movies, like these kinds of kids movies that are shitty and just pander so heavily to kids, never age well. And those kids that enjoy the movie grow up into adults and then they realize, ooh, this movie's not good. So that's something that I can say in RoboCop 3's favor, is that kids may, well, I mean, RoboCop 3 does that too. Kids may watch that movie and then grow up and realize, yeah, this movie isn't very good. But even that movie is a much more well-made film than any of these movies. Oof. But yeah, this movie's humor, it's terrible. It's dumb. It's stupid. It's cringy. It's forced, and it's just not funny. Con number 2 is the awful blue screen and composite effects. I agree, Ryan. Oh my God, does this movie have some of the absolute... This has like Jaws 3D levels of bad blue screen and composite shots. all the composite shots in this movie are so faded and fuzzy and so obviously composite or blue screen effects. They make the optical printer shots from Mothra vs. Godzilla look tame. Oh, and the blue screen effects in this film overall are just absolutely horrendous. The worst of all is when all of the Verusians combine together to create Virus. All you see is a static image of Virus and the other smaller virus creatures just floating over to the main virus, and then it flickers and then it grows. And as it gets bigger and bigger, you can see the holes bleeding through the blue screen on the Viras prop on the blue screen just get bigger and bigger and bigger and more noticeable as it gets bigger. And it's awful, distracting, terrible, and painful to watch. Speaking of which, con number 2 is Virus. Not specifically like the aliens and Virus, I will list them as separate beings. I will list Virus as the big giant squid kaiju, or kaiju Squidward, as I like to call him. At the end of the movie, I will refer to that as Virus. Virus is a shitty monster. Virus is hands down my least favorite Gamera kaiju. He's so bland and boring and basic. He's a giant silver space squid. Whoop-de-fucking-do. He has no special abilities. He has no ultimate attacks. He's got nothing. He's got his tentacles to wrap and constrict, and he's got a sharp head to spear things with. That's it. Whoop-de-goddamn-do. Nobody cares. And as an alien monster, too, he's just kind of a war-hungry conqueror, which makes him very bland and boring in that way, too. Overall, Virus is just an awful, awful, awful monster. I don't like Virus at all. His roar is annoying. His design is lazy. His motivations are nothing new. And he's just a shitty, shitty ass monster, in my opinion. Con number 4, the aliens or the Verusians. Yeah, it's true. Also, you can easily tell when Virus is a guy in a suit because you can see the two tentacles being used as legs in the middle, and he just has like a skirt of tentacles around his waist. It's just dumb and poorly done, in my opinion. But the Virusians themselves, they're stupid. They're complete idiots. Mostly due to the fact that it's really that plot point in the movie that just confirms to me these aliens are idiots. Why did they need to subject themselves to 15 minutes of Gamera stock footage just to realize, hey, kids can be used against him? Then they do that, and they succeed, but then they just decide, okay, mind control Gamera. Why? You already achieved your goal. Just use your leverage that you have to your advantage. Why do you need to go through the effort of mind controlling them? And also, not to mention, why did you even have to use the kids in the first place when you could have just used that technology right from the get-go as soon as you showed up? Because the kids are what butt fucks you guys into your defeat. And why did it take them so long for the aliens to finally put the kids under some kind of restraint when they just kept causing havoc all throughout their ship? It's mind-boggling how idiotic these fucking aliens are in this movie. Jesus Christ. Speaking of which, con number 5, Masao and Jim. Not talking about the rest of the characters yet, but man, Masao and Jim are some unlikable, Annoying ass little shits. Not the most annoying pair of kids in the entire Gamera series, but boy, do they verge on it. They're just annoying, obnoxious, irritating, bratty, snot-nosed, and above all else, they're asshole pranksters. They're almost like Japanese Beavis and Butthead. But at least Beavis and Butthead has some clever humor put into that show and some funny 90s gross out humor. These kids are just awful. They constantly get into trouble. They constantly belittle people. They constantly cause trouble for everyone else around them. It just seems like their sole purpose in life is to be the biggest giant pain in the ass. Maybe it works for them fucking up with the aliens, but other than that, these are supposed to be our protagonists. And what's even worse is when Gamera is fighting Viras, they never shut the fuck up. They just stand there and make sure that the audience knows what the giant turtle's name is. Oh, right, it's Gamera, right? Okay, we get it, guys. Shut the fuck up. They say Gamera's name on repeat at least 30 to 40 times throughout this movie. It is mind-melting. You just want to scream at the screen. Shut up, kids. Ugh. Con number 6 is the characters overall. The rest of the cast in this movie is just basic and boring and bland. They're just here to boss the kids around and act like assholes, be bland, boring military personnel or bland, boring scientist personnel. Or in terms of the aliens, they're just here to be bland, boring, evil, war-hungry, war-conquering, or world-conquering villains. Whoop-de-fucking-do. How creative. Not. Con number 8 is the awful music in this movie is, well, the opening theme when the title screen shows up is all right music, but the rest of the music from here on out, or from that point out, is very bland, very dull, very uninteresting, and very repetitive. Not nearly as bad as the next movie, more on that in a little bit, but yeah, the music in this movie is just terrible. Gamera versus Gauss, and all the way up to Gamera Super Monster, all of their music was composed by the same guy. Let's see. Shunsuke Kikuchi. Now, the only other movies that I know of, aside from the last 5 Gamera movies, the only other movie that I know of that he worked on was Gok Body Snatcher from Hell. Great, good movie, but that movie's music is just kind of meh. Um, okay, yeah. Con number 7 is, yeah, the music is bad. Con number 8 is the pacing in this movie is bad. Somehow it feels slow and fast at the same time. This has to do with one other thing in this movie, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, somehow it's quick and fast at the same time, and it's miserable. Despite the fact the movie is only maybe an hour and 20 minutes long, at times it feels like it's 3 hours, and at times it feels like a half-hour long TV episode. It's just it's well, this really has to do with one other con, but I want to save that for a little later. So for now, just move on. Well, this is another thing that has to do with it. The next con is all the goddamn stock footage. Con number 9. Yeah. This movie is an hour and 20 minutes. And I shit you not, this movie does have 20 minutes of stock footage. They used stock footage from all previous 3 Gamera movies to showcase Gamera's flashbacks with his fights with previous monsters. The first and second fight with Barugan, and the first fight with Gauss, as well as a little bit of the second one. And also to showcase Gamera destroying Tokyo, they reused the scene with Gamera destroying the Kurobe Dam from Gamera versus Barugan, and black and white stock footage to show Gamera destroying Tokyo, because they didn't want to shoot new footage of Gamera destroying Tokyo in color. They had to have just been being lazy with this. There is no way the Dai president thought using sewer rats in a movie undomesticated was a good idea. So maybe they were just like, use black and white footage. Nobody will notice. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They had to have just been being lazy. They were just like, we need to get a movie out this year. Just use black and white footage. Nobody's going to care. Because there's no way in hell that at least one person on that crew looked at that and said, guys, this is black and white footage. Why are we using this to showcase new content? Oh, Christ. Yep, stock footage is I skipped through all of the stock footage scenes in this movie, so it was really only an hour watch. Thank God, because man, does it drag on for an eternity. And this is the other problem, final con number 10, that has to do with this movie's pacing. All the stock footage certainly does break up the pace of the film too, but what really kills the pace, this movie's boring. The characters are boring, the aliens are boring, the monster is boring, the monster fight is kind of boring, even though it is passable. Just overall, the movie is boring. So the only way, actually, now that I think about it, that it feels fast is because the movie is so short. And also, any logical human being would skip through all of the stock footage in this movie, because it's literally just entire scenes of movies that we just watched, especially if you're marathoning all the Gamera movies. It's asinine to sit down and rewatch all the Gamera stock footage. But yeah, this movie is just boring. It's dull, it drags, it's slow, it's tedious, and above all else, it's boring, but it's also annoying because of Masao and Jim. Damn, this movie sucks. Thankfully, I have a bit more good stuff to say about Gamera versus Guiron, so we'll jump into the pros for Gamera versus Guiron next. I have 6 pros for Gamera versus Guiron. Pro number 1 is the tolerable main kids, Akio and Tom. These two are the most tolerable duo of kids of the Gamera series. The ones in Jiger also aren't bad, but there's one kid in that group that's annoying, but more on that when I review Gamera versus Jiger. Akio and Tom, these kids aren't annoying. I find them to actually be kind of likable. They have good chemistry. They come off as being legitimately good friends. And they come off like they have in real life spent a lot of time together. They're just kids. They're playful. They're smarter than they come off, but they still come off as being playful and innocent kids. Their chemistry is good. Their dialogue is decent. Their acting is good. Overall, I like Akio and Tom. They're decent kids. Pro number 2 is Gamera himself in this movie. Notice I didn't talk much about Gamera for Gamera versus Viras, because Gamera versus Virus doesn't really have anything interesting for Gamera to do other than just be there because it's a Gamera movie. But Gamera's personality in this movie is really a lot of fun. His character is a lot of fun. A lot of stuff that he does in this movie is a lot of fun to watch. He feels very personable and three-dimensional character-wise and personality-wise in this movie. Like, if you want to watch this movie just for Gamera, he does do a lot of fun stuff in this movie, including probably the most infamous Mystery Science Theater bit. You know, guys, it just dawned on me how weird this film is, you know? Yeah, it's kind of goofy when he's doing gymnastics on a piece of Terran architecture. um, so that's funny. And Gamera is also funny in this movie. So if you want to watch Gamera be fun, entertaining, and funny in this movie, it certainly won't disappoint. The next pro is while they're cheap, the production values in this movie are pretty imaginative and creative. Terra itself definitely does look like an alien world, yet, at least to me, somehow it does come off as feeling a bit familiar, which does make sense since Terra is supposed to be Earth's sister planet. Um, Yeah, the architecture's fun to look at. All the science technobabble stuff is interesting and creative. That's the other thing about Gamera versus Virus. Its alien spaceship is really nonsensical and stupid looking and boring. Here, it looks honestly like a set out of either a classic Doctor Who episode or a '60s Star Trek episode. It's fun, it's imaginative, it's colorful, there's lots of flashing lights and wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, beepy bobbly stuff. Um, it's fun to look at. Pro number 4 is Guiron. Now, I have heard all the rumors. I don't know if it's a for sure thing that Guiron inspired Knifehead from the beginning of Pacific Rim, but Guiron certainly is a very distinctive monster, which is fitting since Gamera himself is also a very distinctive monster. It's cool that the filmmakers don't let the limitations of budget restrict their imagination. Guiron definitely is, like I said, a very distinctive monster because I can't think of any other monster on Earth. Knifehead doesn't quite count because Knifehead doesn't really have a knife on his head. It's more just like a spike. Whereas Guiron's blade is a legit blade. It slices off Gauss's wings at his head. It even chops it into Gamera's shell a few times and actually manages to draw blood. He cuts through spaceships. He cuts through Terran buildings. He even cuts through his underground lair. Guiron uses his knife head a lot in this movie, and it is very distinctive and very memorable, and certainly is fun to watch Guiron fuck shit up. Although he's a very simple kaiju, he's just a guard dog. He is fun to watch, so that's good. Con number 5 is thankfully there's a lot less stock footage in this movie. Like I said, there's really only about 3 to maybe 4 minutes worth of stock footage in this movie. And it's only used in a way that stock footage can be used in a way that it's not annoying. It's just used to catch somebody up on previous movies' events, and it's done quickly and efficiently. Whereas in Gamera versus Virus, the stock footage was just used to pad out the runtime. Here, it's just used to fill audiences up to speed. And the final pro is the miniature effects and the Sunimation effects for the film are pretty decent. Terra is well created and well made and well realized. And Guiron's suit looks good. Gamera's suit, well, yeah, Gamera's suit looks fine. All the blood effects look really good. Like when Gauss gets killed, the blood effects look there too. When Gamera gets his ass chopped into by Guiron, his blood just sprays all over the place. When Guiron is blown in half, that looks pretty decent. All the flame effects and explosions look good. Overall, the special effects are just decent. They're a little bit better than Gamera versus Virus, but also in some ways they're even worse because the blue screen effects in this film are just absolutely awful. But the fact that the movie is a lot more imaginative and creative does make up for the fact that this movie is obviously very clearly cheap. Moving right into our cons with Gamera versus. Oh, I know, right? Guiron totally looks like an Ultraman kaiju. Moving right into our cons for Gamera versus Guiron. Con number one, which of 7, is God, does this movie look cheap? In some ways, it looks even cheaper than. Oh my God, I'm tired. Hang on, guys. Oh. Um. Yeah, in some ways, this movie looks even cheaper than Gamera versus Virus, mostly due to the wildly inconsistent special effects. The prop effects are bad. The green screen effects are just awful. The underwater stuff is clearly not actually underwater. Whenever the monsters are on strings, they look terrible. Um, yeah, the effects are wildly inconsistent, and when they look bad, man, do they look cheap. Con number 2 is at the end of the movie, Akio gives this really wannabe pretentious philosophical speech about, oh, we encountered an alien race, but they turned out to be so barbaric that they made us appreciate Earth and humanity. So let's all work to make the world a better place by getting rid of war. Okay, that's good. And traffic accidents. What? Well, there is a way to do that. World governments wouldn't do it, but yeah, there is a way to do that. But what? So war, which I agree, and traffic accidents are the worst things that the world has to offer. Huh? It just comes off really forced and really preachy and after school special kids movie PSA bullshit. Con number 3 is Akio and Tom's mothers are uber bitches in this movie. They're just so dismissive, annoying, bitchy, stuck up, and snobby. They come off as being incredibly unlikable in this movie. They constantly just walk around, bitch and moan about how much their kids apparently embarrass them, and then about how they need to get into new schools and stop being kids and start being a boring, bland square just like them. Oh, I hate Akio and Tom's mothers. They're bitches and snobby and just assholes. Let's see. Con number, well, I already talked about that. So con number 4 is the blue screen effects are awful. So I already talked about that. Um, Con number 5, this movie's plot. Okay, a lot of people love to say that this movie is almost beat for beat the exact same movie as Gamera versus Virus. Not really. The only thing that's similar between these two movies is, one, they have two main child protagonists. Two, they deal with aliens. But that's really about it. That's the only similarities. Gamera versus Virus is an alien invasion movie, whereas Gamera versus Guiron is more of an alien exploration film. In Virus, the aliens come to us, whereas Guiron, we go to the aliens, not to invade, just to explore. The tones to both movies are very similar. It's super kitschy, kid friendly, goody two shoes. Um, kids movie, fun, wacky tone plots. In that sense, they're similar, but their plots in general don't feel all that similar to me. But Gamera versus Guiron does come off as being a pretty big inspiration of Invasion of the Astro Monster. It's like if someone took the first half hour of Invasion of the Astro Monster, humans and monsters going to an alien world to fight another alien monster, as if they took that and expanded it into a feature film. Now, it's an interesting concept. It's just the execution, in my opinion, that's not well done. Because in Invasion of the Astro Monster, the fight between Godzilla and Rodan and King Ghidorah is a lot of fun. Whereas with con number 6, the monster fights, all three of them, well, except for Guiron versus Gauss, but that's just because it's fun to watch Guiron totally wreck Gauss's shit. All three fights between Guiron and Gamera suck. They're really lacklusterly and lazily shot and choreographed. All of the camera shots linger and go on way too long. They spend a lot of the time just slowly and lethargically moving around and lazily roaring, and eventually just kind of slow-mo jumping onto each other, or just like Gamera will bite Guiron, or Gamera will fly around and awkwardly knock into Guiron and send him flying. Or Gamera will slowly lift himself up in the air and bring himself slowly crashing down on Guiron. I can see that they're kind of trying to be more campy and fun with the monster fights in this movie, but to me, they're too slow. They drag like crazy, and they're just not interestingly done enough for my tastes. Wow, a fucking monster movie, and the monster fights in this film are bad. How do you like reach that kind of low? That's just sad. And the final con that I have with this movie, the ugly head of Shinsuke Kikuchi really rears its head with this movie. The music in this film is bad. It's boring, it's uninteresting, and it's extremely repetitive. All throughout the monster fights, all you hear is dun 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 dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun. All you hear, it sounds like, I wouldn't be surprised if the music score for this movie was done by only 3 people, because man, is it just ass in this film. That's really all I have to say about both of these movies. Not gonna lie, guys, I don't like these movies. Gamera versus Viras is one of the worst monster movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It's cheap, it's lazy, it's nonsensical, it's dumb, it's bullshit. It's just a bad movie. Gamera versus Guiron can be enjoyed in like a so bad it's good type mindset. But overall, it's not well made, it's not well executed. It's got some decent ideas, and it is a better kids movie than Gamera versus Virus, but still, overall, it's not a good movie, and I find it pretty difficult to sit through, if you ask me. Gamera versus Virus will be getting a 2 out of 10. I considered a 1, but the opening scene is fun and the effects are passable for what they had to work with. But yeah, this movie is not good at all, in my opinion. Um, and as for Gamera versus Guiron, I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 10. Again, it can be enjoyed in a so bad it's good type mentality, but still, overall, I don't dig either of these movies. They're some of my least favorite monster movies of all time. Um, and thank God the next movie, well, it's kind of the last it was like the last chance for the series to be good. Thankfully, it does almost make up for both of these movies being as shitty as they are. So, with all that being said, post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And go out and watch some good kaiju movies. Avoid Virus and Guiron like the plague. And I will see you guys in the next one. Damn, was that just a mouthful?